Hey everyone. Yeah. Yeah. First of all, happy St. Patty's Day. It is, of course, March 17th, Tuesday, March 17th, 2015. And I thought I'd kind of talk about something. Now, I know, like Jeff Siegel said, I think in his Facebook Q&A, he answered a question basically how we're all eventually wrestling marks, no matter how we feel about it or how we view it or want to view it or want to see it done or, like it as it is. We're all wrestling marks. So, with that said, uh, one of the things he's talked about, and I'm sure Deluxe Man has, and British Fist, and Don Tony, and Kevin Castle, and Solomon Monster, and anybody that's talked about this since November, everybody wants to know why, no matter how bad, why, no matter how bad the WWE is right now, why we as fans are so excited at Sting being there. And mostly, especially after last night and the extras that we got on the WWE Network, why we're so excited. Well, here's the reason, and it's probably the same reason a lot of other people have said. Even Sting said it somewhat in his own way. We as fans have been waiting 14 years for this moment. We've been waiting 14 years. Here's one of the key players of WCW, the icon, the franchise of WCW, that remained with the company even while everybody else that he has been known to feud with, team with, you name it. Even after everybody else left and went to WWE, he remained loyal. Excuse me. Even throughout all the years that WCW went through various transitions, from Bill Watts trying to really go old school with the product by removing the lamps and just using like one or few lights and focusing mostly on the ring and not the audience, and kind of going back to the old Southern style of the UWF and such. To getting people like Jim Herd put in charge and things like that. To having tag teams like the Ding Dongs, come in. To having David Arquette as the world champion, to Vince Russo as the champion. And, here's a guy in Sting that, despite all those changes and transitions, just like a Ric Flair, just like Arn Anderson, a Tully Blanchard, a Lex Luger, Steiner Brothers, anybody that's been known to really be associated with Sting as the faces and the franchises of WCW, all jumped ship to WWE at one point or another. Now, sometimes they'll stay in the company would probably be only a year or two, or even 3. I mean, even Goldberg made the jump. And true, that was 2 years after, but even he made the jump. But like I said, doesn't matter who it was. They always made that jump to WWE and tested the waters there. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not so successfully. I mean, imagine your reaction. You're watching WWF Superstars back in 92, 93, and you're hearing and you hear Vince McMahon talking about a preview of what's to come next week, who's going to show up next week on Superstars, and you hear the debut of the Steiner Brothers. You think to yourself, Holy smokes, the Steiner brothers? Because here's a team that you recently saw in WCW almost not even that long ago. And yet, throughout all that, here's a person in Sting that could have had that same opportunity but remained with the company. He remained with the company no matter what. No matter who was in charge, no matter what the changes, no matter who left or who stayed, he stayed with the company. He's one of the guys that, help, in a sense, put people like Dustin Rhodes, Reynolds, if you will, Goldust on the map in that company, to where WWE took notice, brought him back, and said, okay, we're going to give you this gimmick because we feel you can work with it. Here's a guy that, when they brought in Marcus Bagwell, Buff Bagwell, helped put him on the map. Here's a guy that WCW decided, okay, we're going to put the Junkyard Dog with, JYD, we're going to put him with as an ally. Same with Davey Boy Smith, because even though these guys are very well known for being on WWE television, this is a dream team scenario fans have been wanting to see. It was no matter who needed to be put on the map, who needed help to be noticed and put on the map, or who was established and they wanted to align with Sting. These were people that went to WCW, left, went back to WWE, maybe went to ECW, people that were in WCW that went to WWE at one point or another. Here's a list and group of guys, and even the established ones, like I said, that all jumped ship to WWE, or at least jumped back to WWE, or at least went somewhere else, tested the waters. I mean, when Jake the Snake Roberts went to WCW, who did they put him up against first? Exactly, Sting. Because they knew, even though Jake Roberts was mostly known for his time in WCW, not WCW, but WWE, known for most of his time there, and seeing that he had just gotten off a hot feud, if you will, not just with The Undertaker, but with Randy Savage of all people, they knew that the best thing to do, bringing him in, instead of just having him work his way to the top, throw him into a program with Sting. That's going to get people's attention. That's going to get people talking. Did they have the best matches per se? No, they didn't. But they still had good matches. But not good matches, but they still, in a sense, had some good chemistry, no matter how you look at it. And being paired with Jake Roberts helped elevate Sting, helped him to learn a few things as well. I mean, heck, you take someone like Ravishing Rick Rude, a WWE's mainstay, who has had feuds with Warrior, been known for his feud with Warrior, has had some interaction with Hogan and stuff like that. All of a sudden, you take him from that, put him in WCW, first person you put him up against is Sting. Why? Because Sting can learn from him, but also it helps establish Rude as a top guy in WCW. You see, no matter who was brought in, ended their career there, or who was brought in, had a small, maybe minor stint in the company and then went back to WWE or went to the independents or ECW, no matter who was being introduced into the company and needed that rub, like Dustin and Marcus, here's a guy in Sting that stayed no matter what. Here's a guy that, like I mentioned earlier, when guys like Flair, Anderson, Blanchard, Wyndham, the Steiners, the Road Warriors, all left and went to WWE, all who have been associated with Sting in some form or fashion, went to WWE, tested the waters there, then came back later on. Lex Luger being one of them as well. He's a guy that stayed loyal with the company, even when those that people would look at as being sort of like like the franchises of that company as well, the faces of that company as well, would jump ship and go to the competition. Here's a guy that stayed loyal. Here's a guy that stayed loyal with the company even when it went out of business. Here's a guy that stayed loyal and true to his word, that he wanted to, for the time, until the situation presented itself, to the right situation presented itself, wanted to kind of keep his name out of the WWE hat, as those that got signed by WWE to at least test the waters there. He wanted to be the kind of guy that didn't want to jump ship just yet. Even if TNA never came to be, he wanted to be the kind of guy that wanted to kind of remain on the outside looking in, because he wasn't too sure of what was going to happen until the correct circumstances presented itself. And guess what? The correct circumstances presented themselves last year. They did. The correct circumstances presented themselves last year. But here's also a guy that stayed true to his word for a while, and the only reason he remained in TNA is because he still saw potential in a possible alternative to the WWE. He also stayed there, no matter how you think about the company, to help the younger guys to learn from his experience, to learn how to become something themselves, how to establish themselves in this business, how to take advice from those that you may not like coming into the company because they're WWE alumni, but will come in and they can learn from with them. So, again, here's a guy in Sting that stayed away for 14 years. Stayed away for 13 to 14 years until last November, and he made his presence known. Here's a guy that when he did show up, it's a moment we have been hoping for and praying for years. We were hoping it would be sooner. Every time his contract with TNA would be up, we'd be like, please WWE, get this guy, get him under contract. But no, he would remain because he still felt that there was work that needed to be done. There were still lessons to be taught in TNA to the younger guys, to the younger men and women. So here's a guy in Sting that could have remained with the company in TNA, could have stayed with them, but apparently, in my opinion, knew that he had accomplished what he needed to accomplish with that company. Yes, did they put the world title on him? Yes, they did. Did they put, I think, the tag titles on him at one point? Yes, they did. But here's a guy that no matter how that company was being, no matter how well that company's ship was being steered, no matter who the captain was at the helm, stayed with the company because he knew from his own experience that company was going through its trials and tribulations, just like it still is at times, but was going through some of its major trials and tribulations, due to the fact that it needed some guidance, it needed some experience, it needed some help. And he wanted to be there to help them, and that's what he did. Do they still need help? Of course TNA still needs help. What company doesn't? Even WWE still needs help in some ways. But the thing is, he stayed with there for the main reason to help the younger men and women learn the ins and outs, and how to help each other, how to help the company, how to be there and how to establish themselves in this business, make a name for themselves, as well as be there for others when they need that advice. They need that experience given to them. So again, he waited to the right time. And the right time obviously was last year and this year. Which is why we're excited, because even though it's 14 years too late, maybe 5 years too late, it's still happening. This is something we never thought we'd see. Yes, does it give WWE... Yes, in a sick, perverted way, does it give WWE the pleasure of knowing that they have now signed just about every single that they have now signed and put under contract every major WCW franchise player in that company's history? Of course it does. Does it satisfy them to the fact that they finally signed the guy that nobody said would ever jump ship to WWE or ever go to WWE? Of course it does. It gives them a lot of satisfaction. It really does. It gives them tremendous satisfaction because even though some might say Sting could have stayed with TNA and still been that, one elusive piece of talent, of WCW talent that WWE could never get, again, like I said, I think in my opinion, Sting knew his work was done in TNA. He had accomplished, obviously in his mind, what he needed to accomplish, and now he was leaving it in the hands of other experienced stars that could lend their advice as well. So what's he do? He goes to WWE where he knows at least he's got to have one more shot. I mean, you think Steve Borden doesn't realize his career is coming to an end and he's got to do this? He's got to at least get this done and get it out of the way? Of course it does. Of course he does. Does it mean that after it's all said and done that maybe if TNA or Ring of Honor are still around, that he probably won't go make an appearance with one of those companies down the line? Of course he knows that might happen still. But this is an opportunity right now that he knows he's got to take. Because he's not promised tomorrow, he's not promised next year, nobody is. But he realizes that this is now or never. This is the moment, it's now or never. And obviously he sees that the circumstances are working out perfectly for him because he notices that a lot of guys are getting these kind of contracts, whether we're fans of them or not, that allows them to be performers for the company, but work on a part-time basis that works within their schedule. It allows them to be with their families, allows them to do what they got to do, but they don't always have to be there night in and night out. And I think that's what Sting looks at. He looks at that benefit. He really does. So to me, as a longtime fan, this is why I'm happy Sting's in the company. No matter how his contract is structured, we're just happy to have him there. We were happy when we saw him show up at Survivor Series because, of course, Survivor Series at times when the circumstances present themselves is known for its moments. To have him show up there and make his official debut there was great. I mean, we knew he was going to come in. I mean, with him working with WWE on the 2K15 game, we knew he was going to come in eventually, and he did, and we were happy about that. We knew that, it was just exciting because, to a lot of us, it was just a moment we never thought we'd see happen, and it did. And it's a moment that is just kept going and going and going, and growing and growing. From his appearance on Raw when John Cena got everybody's Ziggler and Rowan and Ryback their jobs back. There's that moment. We never thought we'd see Sting on Raw, yet there he was. He was on Raw. He didn't do anything at first like he did at Survivor Series, but yet he was on Raw. Then we see his appearance again in sort of a altered voice, with his voice being altered. That was one thing. And then to see him do what he did last night, that was a moment we have been wanting to see. See him compete on Raw. See him kind of physically get involved somehow on Raw, just like he did in a sense at Fastlane. But what made this even more special in the eyes of a lot of fans is this was Monday Night Raw. This is the program that when he was part of WCW, he went up against because he would appear on Nitro. He was a Nitro flagship.